All right, welcome back. You're watching Daybreak on Trust TV. Time for us to take a look at the dailies. On Daybreak, we have Dr. Theophilus Abba, the director of Daily Trust Foundation, with us in the studio. He'll be taking a look at the papers with us this morning. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Welcome to Daybreak. Well, I hope that you were able to have some rest in this season. It's not a period that many people.
I'm lucky that I'm no longer in the newsroom. If I were in the newsroom, I will have a sleepless night. You have to monitor the elections and make sure that you get the right results. But since I'm no longer in the newsroom, I've left people like Stella and maybe Ayuba. People can now do that.
Yes.
But I'm now watching the news like other leaders. Yes.
Yeah. All right. Now let's take a look at the dailies now on Daybreak, beginning with the Daily Trust newspaper. The lead story here says NNPP wins Kano, APC in Kaduna, Niger, Benue, Nasarawa, Borno, Ebonyi, Cross River. It has the riders that says PDP clinches Plateau, Rivers, Delta, Taraba, leads in Zamfara. INEC declares Adamawa poll inconclusive. Soldiers killed 2 policemen in Taraba. Collation suspended in Abia, Enugu states. You'd find all the details of that on page 4, 11, and 16, just to bring you up to speed with the outcome of the governorship and state assembly elections. Now, above the lead story, 2 killed, many abducted as bandits block Buari Jere Road. Analysts forecast interest rate hike as MPC meeting ends today. Notorious bandit Umaru Nagona killed by troops. You find that on page 17. Now, it's very interesting to take a look at the political map in the country and how it's somewhat changing. A lot of new faces in the political scene. You have so far 23 states that have been announced, the APC winning 15 and the PDP 7. You have about 9 governors seeking re-elections so far, re-elected, and also others who are coming in for the first time. If you take a look, you see Umo Eno, Radha, Namadi, Aliyu, Abba, Sani, Hyacinth, Mutfwang, Bago, Inwifuru, Sherif, Otu, Fubara, and Kefas. These are some of the new names that you'll be hearing going forward as governors of those states. Now, below that, Ramadan, look out for moon tomorrow, Sultan tells Muslims. That's on page 26, and then at the footnote, Zamfara, Anambra speakers lose to PDP candidate. Kano governorship, we are studying results, will make our position known, says the APC. China, Nigeria trade deals dropped by 37 billion naira in 1 year. You'd find all the details on page 21. These are the main stories on the Daily Trust newspaper.
Now let's take a look at the Punch newspaper. It's also on the election results. It says APC wins 15 states, PDP 6, NNPP takes Kano. And the first rider, 27 killed nationwide in election violence, thuggery. Then we have Ganduje Tambuwal candidates lose. The second rider, PDP rejects Ogun, Katsina results. Konkosia supporters defy curfew, jubilating Kano. INEC suspends Abia Enugu coalition, declares Adamawa governorship poll inconclusive. And beneath that, we have a map that shows the states that have gone to the blue. The blue there represents the APC. The states that have gone to the red, that's the PDP 6. And then we have a new color there, which is yellow, with the state that has gone to the NNPP. Then beneath that, we have someone who raises civil servant salary by 20%. Lagos husband arraigned for wife's death. Musician friend killed BDC operators, guard arrested. And just by the masthead, we have accept defeat, Delta governor-elect tells Omo Agege. And above the masthead, EFCC grills 4 NCAA chiefs over alleged 2 billion naira fraud. Anger as NNPCL hires expatriate to head subsidiary. Still on the Punch, EU observers blame politicians INEC for vote buying. These are the major stories on the Punch newspaper for today.
All right, now let's take a look at the Guardian newspaper. This morning, the lead story there, protest as INEC suspends election results in Adamawa, Abia, Enugu. It has the writers that says 2023 election lacked transparency, damaged public confidence in INEC, says EU. Sani Sule, Oborewori, Fubara, Yusuf, others declared winners. These are the main stories. And then also below the pictorial, INEC declares Kebbi gubernatorial election inconclusive. So you have another one there, lingering economic challenges push 44 firms off NGX list in 7 years. So you have inconclusive elections declared in Adamawa, Abia, Enugu, and Kebbi states. So these are the main stories this morning.
Now let's take a look at the Nation newspaper. Still on election results. APC wins 15 states, PDP 6, NNPP takes Kano. And the rider, Labour Party leads in Abia. Fubara, Otu, Ovowori are governors-elect. And then just by that, we have a table showing the winners of these elections and the runners-up. And above that, we have polls inconclusive in Adamawa, Kebbi, Abia, and Enugu. And above the masthead, Lagos OK's 20% salary raise for workers, payment backdated. Cash crisis, banking infrastructure for expansion. We also have expect new moon for Ramadan tomorrow, says the Sultan. JAM sets new guidelines for direct entry registrations. These are the major stories on the Nation.
All right, now let's take a look at the Vanguard newspaper. And on the Vanguard newspaper, you have Sheriff, Yusuf, Nwifuru, Zulum, Mutfwang, others emerge governors. You have tension in Enugu, Abia as INEC holds results collation. Electoral officers escape lynching in Niger. Beg your pardon. Police confirm killing of 2 officers by soldiers in Taraba. EU mission knocks INEC, says violence, vote buying, mad polls. 78 million Nigerian children risk water-related crisis, says the UNICEF. At the very top there, you find banks borrowing from CBN down 14% to 453.7 billion naira. These are the main stories on the Vanguard this morning.
Over now to the Leadership newspaper. Has a slightly different headline. It says, drama as INEC declares Binani's historic march inconclusive. The first writer says PVC's collected more than vote margin between APC candidate and Governor Fintiri. Then the second writer, election to hold in 47 wards across 21 Adamawa local government areas. Results suspended in Abia, Enugu. And beneath that, we have, despite weaker Naira, Nigeria's foreign trade surplus rises by 162%. Cash crunch killing businesses, Afenifere laments. And we also have a picture of 3 newly elected lawmakers with the caption, New Kids on the Block. 3 new legislators in their 20s share plans for state. And just above the masthead, we have APC consolidates, wins Benue, Borno, Cross River, Kaduna, Nasarawa, Sokoto, Ebonyi, while PDP retains Bauchi, Delta, Rivers, and retakes Plateau. These are the major stories on the Leadership for today.
All right, now let's get some more perspectives on some of the stories that we have for you this morning. Like we told you, we have Dr. Theophilus Abba, the director of Daily Trust Foundation, with us in the studio. Thanks again, Doctor, for joining us on Daybreak this morning.
Thank you. Good morning.
Well, it's all about the outcome of the governorship and state assembly elections. We've seen some new faces now in the political space, and some of the governors re-elected. However, some are not that lucky. So, for instance, we understand that the Zamfara State Governor has lost his re-election bid. How does that come to you in your assessment of the election?
Well, if you look at the elections, I mean, so far, is a classic sense of power struggle. You know, it has gone beyond from printing the ballot papers to struggle among the political heavyweights, you know, and who gets the highest number of votes. I mean, raw power struggle. That's what we are witnessing now. To struggle among the political heavyweights to grab power at the in various states. And I've also noticed that the fortunes of the PDP keeps diminishing, you know, and that is quite sad because we are likely now not going to have a very robust or the opposition if the PDP keeps going down. You remember the PDP was in power for some years, but now from being a dominant party, and right now it's only 6 states that PDP has, and then we noticed that the APC, which is supposed to be at a disadvantage,
it's 7 now. The PDP has 7 states.
Has 7 states now. Okay.
Based on the results that have been
announced so far, then the APC, which is supposed to be at a disadvantage because of what we say the poor performance of the party is gaining more momentum. So it's like, you know, I don't know. The result of the election is showing the parties that are making more effort. To actually grab power, not so much as what they are putting on the table.
But,
you know?
And Dr. Abba, when you look at this election, the state governorship election and the presidential. During the presidential, we saw a lot of upsets. Yes. We saw a lot of governors, sitting governors, unable to win their bid to the Senate. We also saw chairman of a party losing his state. We saw the president and the governor of his state losing the state to the PDP. But we found that in the governorship, apart from the biggest upset which we have seen from Zamfara, and we saw that and Kano was almost expected. But apart from that, we saw that the APC was able to reclaim some of those states that it lost during the presidential. Yes. What do you think happened?
I think after the presidential election, the APC was destabilized. You know, then the 1 week extension. I don't know, even though it was because of this issue of configuring beavers. I know, but I think the 1 week extension, you know, helped the APC to actually reorganize itself, you know. So I think what has happened in this election, you know, demonstrates that people can actually overcome, the initial shock. You know, what I've noticed is this: for the results that were declared early, you know, these results that were declared maybe on Saturday and maybe on Sunday, you know, we saw some upsets. But as the results were delayed, you know, we suspect that some kind of manipulative activities were going on, you know, and that is why even areas that you hear about a particular party leading, you now discover that they are no longer leading. The APC is winning and all this. I'm not saying the APC is fraudulent. That's not what I'm saying. But then the delay in the release of the elections in some places gives room for a kind of insinuation that, you know, some things were going behind the scene and the struggles to change figures and things like that were happening.
Okay. Well, we've seen a lot of I would say appraisals of the performance of INEC as far as the elections are concerned, and the EU has also released a statement also appraising the performance of INEC. It blames politicians and INEC for vote buying. So those are some of the stories that we are seeing. So in terms of the irregularities that have been pointed in this governorship and state assembly elections, when you put that side by side with that of the presidential election, have we really learned anything, and have we seen any improvement?
Well, I use one phrase, I say power struggle. You know, I used it earlier. I think the main problem we have with elections in Nigeria has to do with the desperation of politicians. You see, if you look at how desperate politicians have been over the years, not just in this election, but in previous elections, You know, if you remember the, I don't know, you may not remember, the 1965 election, we had serious crisis, both in the 64 federal election and 65 election in Western Nigeria. And you know that the crisis led to the coup and the civil war because politicians were very, very desperate. You know, if vote buying did not start in this election, if you look at the history of vote buying in Nigeria, right from the first election that was conducted in 64, 65, there was a whole lot of vote buying, a lot of manipulations. Now, if you come to the 1983 election, we also had issues like that. You know, that was the Umoborio was Ajasin election, Michael Ajasin election, which led to a serious crisis in Ondo State. And based on that crisis, the military had a reason to intervene in 1983, 84. That was the first coup, you know. And so desperation of, politicians in Nigeria is actually affecting democracy. And I'm happy that EU is making a statement because EU is one of the funders of the current electoral exercise. EU provides a lot of funds because they want Nigeria to get things right. Okay. And EU does so. Okay. EU does so because they want to see democracy work in Nigeria. But politicians especially, we blame INEC, but then politicians are too desperate. What we thought is this: if you want to become the president, you want to become the governor, let us have your agenda. But in the current election, we don't even know what NNPP stands for. We don't know what PDP stands for. We don't know what APC stands for. We don't even know what Labour Party stands for, except that Labour Party is supposed to be a leftist party. I don't even think it's actually a leftist party in the real sense of it. So we don't know what these parties are standing for. All we know is that politicians are struggling to grab power at the center and in the states. All right, that's all we have seen.
So,
and so they are very desperate.
From what you have said, the desperation has always been there.
Yeah, it's always been there. And it shouldn't be so.
So there are certain people who are saying that maybe the perks of offices in Nigeria, if they are not there or if they are not as much as they are, maybe people will not be so desperate to occupy these offices.
Well, you can talk about the perks, of...
because if people know that it's work that you're going to do, maybe you won't be so desperate.
But the reason why we are where we are today is that there's work that ought to be done which people don't do. You understand? We have a lot of work. You see, if you become a governor, for instance, if you are a governor of a state, you have a lot of work to do. You have to provide social services. You know, one of the things that we have ignored is the fact that the governor is not there to demonstrate that he's the luckiest person or to demonstrate that he's wealthy or successful. He has to provide social service. You know, for you to accept that position, you must ensure that, look, the education system works. You must ensure that, there's water, there's health facility, there are roads. You know, there are things that will make people, comfortable. There's more security. But when all these things are not being provided, but you sit on a high chair, collecting money from the center, collecting tax and spending.
Are the people really demanding these things? Are these things a priority for the people, the electorates that go to vote, really? Are they really priority? Because
people
from the narratives and from all the discussions we've seen in campaigns and all of that, it doesn't look like this social services that you talk about is at the front burner, of deciding who gets to become one.
I think what has happened is this. Nigerians have got to a point that they know that this thing should be given. They know that the government should provide A, B, C, D, E, F. And they make requests. Government, do this for us, do that for us. Even when politicians go to communities to campaign, so when I get there, I will be sure that your roads are okay. For instance, you see, there is what to talk about, or what to call the budget process. Now, when you want to, do a budget for a year, a particular year, you are supposed to go to the communities. And the communities say, these are our needs. Then you now include these things in the budget. You understand? And these things ought to be done. The people know what government should do for them. Government knows what they should do for them.
But Doctor, what Ayuba is saying is, if the people know what they want, are they really demanding? Because we saw that they are pushing forward the ethnic issues and religious issues, even in the selection or election of the person. So it doesn't look as if the ability of the person to provide these things is on the front burner.
It's quite unfortunate. It's quite unfortunate that ethnic and religious issues are taking the front burner in Nigeria, and it's the politicians who are making them issues. It's the politicians who tell them, oh, this one is a Muslim, don't vote for him. This one is a Christian, don't vote for him. This one does not attend my church, don't vote for him. This one does not belong to our state. That is the politicians who are whipping up this sentiment. It is not the people.
If really the social services that you talk about, it's of concern to the people, why should these things matter? Why should some of these issues thrown up by the politicians matter to them? Why should they take it to heart? Why should they, so seriously and so passionately, count on those things as though they are the main issues that matter?
Yeah, I think enlightenment has to come in. You see, if you look at elections in Nigeria, it has always been about ethnicity and religion over the years. Not just the 2023 election. The 64-65 election was about religion and ethnicity. All over the years. 83 election was also about it. So what I'm saying is that Nigerians need to come out of this sentiment. The important thing for any country, security and economy. That is what is important. But as far as Nigeria is concerned, the politicians have elevated religion and ethnicity over and above security, economy, and the welfare of the people.
Okay, let's talk about.
And it shouldn't be so.
Yes, let's talk about the role of security here. You said focus should be on security. Let's get your own thoughts. We have a story here where 2 people were killed in Taraba State as a result of a clash or a fracas that ensued between the police and the army, close to in an election season, in a moment where they are supposed to be providing security and protecting our democracy. Here you have security personnel clashing and fighting to the extent of killing themselves. What does that say? Now, if you have thugs coming to disrupt collation centers, and now you have security personnel fighting themselves, what does that say really?
Actually, I think it has to do with interagency rivalry, because we have seen that some powerful, put it in quote now, politicians, have maybe soldiers and policemen who are protecting their interests during the election. And so the rivalry between the soldiers and the policemen is what we are seeing. It's quite unfortunate that is happening. I spoke to one police officer who used to monitor elections. I said, why are you not going to work, to monitor election? He said, no, I don't want to go. I said, why don't you want to go? He said, well, when we go for election, assignment, we are always told what to do. When you go there, this is what you must do, that is what you must do. And one of the things he said shocked me. He said, look, we are told that when you get there, even if you see thugs and misbehaving, do nothing, because they are only political thugs, they are not armed robbers. So they told them that they are just part of the whole political and power struggle. So, if you see thugs, don't lift a finger.
So thugs are now recognized.
Now, so if you now see
the political process,
you can now see why soldiers and policemen will clash. If they represent different interests, perhaps candidate A has soldiers behind him and candidate B had policemen behind him, and maybe something untoward is happening during the election.
But isn't that a clear
process.
violation of the code of conduct that was given to them before the election? Because I do know that before this particular election, there was one that was prepared and provided to all security personnel that were going to take part in this election.
Yeah, it's a all the codes have been violated.
So shouldn't there be sanctions for all of this?
Yeah, all the codes have been violated. Even the codes that INEC even created for itself. INEC has violated its own code. So policemen have violated their code. Even politicians who signed peace accord and all those things, they say we are going to ensure that whatever is the outcome we accept. They also are violating all the codes. So it's very unfortunate that is happening in Nigeria. Because as far as elections are concerned, it should bring out the kind of candidates who are going to work for the country. But now we are not seeing that. the kind of people that are coming up are people that are propped up by some politicians, and those who are so powerful enough to buy their way, to use violence, to force themselves upon the people.
All right,
that's the kind of election that we have just had.
All right, Doctor, talking about institution, we just talked about the security. Now let's talk about INEC. I saw a CDD report which said that distrust between the people and INEC was a problem. Now, this is an institution, irrespective of who is at the helm of affairs at any point. And it's a very critical institution to democracy and the growth of democracy in Nigeria. So if this distrust exists, where do we go from here?
Well, it's very... INEC has the responsibility of, boosting people's confidence in that institution. It's the role of INEC to do so. Because as long as people don't trust INEC, it affects the image of INEC, number one, and it affects the credibility of what INEC does. For instance, I don't know the number of voters that came out in this election, but it will be far below the number of voters that came out in the presidential election. Because people believe that INEC did not do the right thing when the presidential election took place. Some areas, especially the presidential election, people believe that INEC was not unbiased. Now, in this election, this one that has happened, the governorship election, you hear about papers being moved from place to place. You have people moving from one place to another, doctoring documents. And INEC is supposed to say no. INEC is supposed to say no. In fact, there was I was doing a kind of research for a write-up. One man called Eyo Eswa, he was the first electoral umpire in 1964-65. Do you know that when this man discovered that politicians were misbehaving, he resigned? He said, I'm no longer doing this because I cannot guarantee a free and fair election. I cannot guarantee that INEC, the electoral empire that I had, can deliver a free and fair election under this atmosphere. He told politicians to their face that this one, I cannot do. He resigned and left. Okay. You understand? But as long as INEC cannot look at politicians in the face and say no to them, if INEC cannot look at politicians and say no to them, I think MAI did something close to that.
Well, these days, INEC says it's more of a job of the judiciary, the courts, to decide that. Because for every irregularity or for every concern that have been raised by political party agents, they always say... Well,
I think I just hope that the courts themselves, they will actually do the right thing. Because there is this phrase that they use in dealing with electoral issues. They say substantial compliance. And there was time I was doing a piece about some of these elections. When Buhari complained about, I think, the 2007 election, which even Yaradua said was not free and fair, Buhari went to court, up to Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said, well, you have evidence that in Cross River there was this, in this place there were these irregularities. Yeah. But they say that there was no substantial evidence. When Atiku also went to court over, I think, one of the 2011, one of the elections, I can't remember the judiciary said, well, we have evidence that, but it's not substantial enough. So we are just hoping that, our Supreme Court, our judiciary will go beyond talking about substantial to let us do something that is doctor. Specific, that they ought to be.
Okay, Doctor, we don't have time, but in 1 minute, there's a new report now that ranks Nigeria as the 95th most happiest country in the world. I would like your take on that.
95th most happiest. How many countries were evaluated? Maybe no more than 150.
Yes, so in the world, it says in the world. So I presume it's all the countries.
Well, I think it's good to be first. If you are the most happiest country in the world, it's better. Yeah. But when you are about 90 something, like when I was in primary school, we always look forward to first, second, third. If your name is not among the four, maybe up to 7th or 8th. But if you go to number 10 position, nobody will clap hand for you, and it was an unfortunate error where they will stand.
Nigeria will have to unseat Finland in that category for them to be the most.
Well, I think what we need is provision of social infrastructure. That's what Nigeria
and our
needs.
happiness will increase.
Yes, social infrastructure. For instance, I mean, if you need fuel, you go to a fuel station, you get fuel.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We have to go because of time. We appreciate you coming on the program.
Thank you very much.